I'm standing on a stage in front of 100 people. My brother's engagement party in full swing, and there's a remote control in my pocket that's about to end 6 relationships, destroy 2 careers, and set me free. But before I tell you about the moment I pressed that button, before I tell you what played on that giant screen, and why my brother's fiancée ran out of the room crying, I need to take you back 3 weeks to a family dinner where I finally understood that the people who were supposed to love me the most had been planning to rob me blind.
I'm Jason.
I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how I wiped the smug smiles off my family's faces in front of 100 of their most important friends. It started on a Sunday. My mom, Diane, has this thing about Sunday dinners. She calls them family time, but for me, they've always felt more like a command performance. I show up, I sit in my assigned seat, metaphorically and literally, and I play the role of Alex's quiet little brother, while the whole family orbits around him like he's the sun. Alex is 2 years older than me. He's the golden child, real estate guy. Big smile, firm handshake, always the loudest voice in the room. And that night, he'd brought his new serious girlfriend to dinner for the first time. Her name was Chloe. I should have known something was different the moment she walked in. Chloe wasn't like the other girls Alex dated, the Instagram models and bottle service types. She had this sharpness about her. She worked at a big venture capital fund, and she wore her ambition like armor. Every smile she gave felt calculated, like she was always 3 moves ahead of whatever conversation she was in. We were sitting around my parents' dining table, this polished mahogany thing my mom is weirdly proud of, and the conversation was doing what it always does, orbiting around Alex, his latest deal, his new car, his upcoming ski trip to Aspen. I was picking at my chicken, trying to stay invisible, when Chloe turned her attention to me. "So, Alex tells me you're a programmer, Jason," she said. And the way she said programmer, I can't even describe it. Like she was talking about someone who collects bottle caps for a living. "I'm actually a data scientist," I said. "I run my own." She cut me off with this little laugh. "Oh, that's adorable. You have your own little spreadsheet company? That's so sweet that you found a hobby that pays the bills." The table laughed. Not mean, cruel laughter. Something worse. The dismissive kind. The kind that says, "We don't take you seriously enough to even bother being cruel." Alex draped his arm over her shoulder, grinning. "She's a firecracker, isn't she?" My mom chimed in with that voice she uses when she's pretending to care. "Jason, honey, we just worry about you. That tech world is so unstable. Not like Alex's work. Real estate is solid, tangible." Then my dad cleared his throat. When Richard Miller clears his throat, it means a verdict is coming. Your brother builds things, Jason. He deals with real people and real assets. He looked at me with this expression, not anger, not disappointment, just this flat, clinical dismissal. "You sit in a dark room and type. We just want you to have a secure future." Every word was a brick, and they'd been building this wall around me my entire life. I looked at Chloe. She was watching me with this little smile on her face, testing me, seeing how far she could push the family's designated punching bag. And my family, my own family, was handing her the stick. But here's the thing that hurt the most, and this is the part I've never told anyone. When I was 9 years old, my dad took me to Best Buy. Just me and him. It was the only time I can remember having my father all to myself. He let me pick out my first computer, this clunky Dell desktop that weighed about 40 pounds. And on the drive home, he looked at me and said, "You're gonna build something amazing someday, kid." Was the last time my father ever looked at me like I mattered. And sitting at that dinner table 23 years later, listening to him tell me I just sit in a dark room and type, I kept thinking, what happened to that dad? Where did he go? Chloe wasn't done. She leaned forward. Her eyes locked on me with this intensity I mistook for condescension. "So what exactly does your little AI thing do? What programming language do you use for the neural network? What's your data processing framework?" At the time, I thought she was just trying to prove she knew big words. Just more mockery dressed up in tech jargon. I gave her vague, deflective answers. I didn't realize until much later that those weren't casual questions. They were surgical. She wasn't making small talk. She was on a fishing expedition, and my family had baited the hook for her. The final blow came from my dad. I'd tried one last time to explain what I was actually building. A forensic accounting AI designed to detect sophisticated financial fraud. Chloe waved her hand like she was swatting a fly. Oh, honey, leave that to the big players. My firm is actually looking at acquiring a real AI company right now. Brilliant algorithm. It's a bit out of your league. Everyone nodded. My brother snickered. I put my fork and knife down on my plate. The metallic clink was the loudest sound in the room. I didn't say a word. I just looked at each of them. My mother, my father, my brother, and this woman I'd met 2 hours ago who had already figured out exactly how little my family thought of me. My father broke the silence. Jason, don't be rude, he hissed. Stop making the family look bad. Not, that's enough. Not, stand up for yourself. Just, stop making us look bad. My role in this family was to absorb the hits and protect the family's image. That was it. That was all I'd ever been. I picked my fork back up, but I didn't eat. I just sat there. A ghost at my own family's table. And if you're already angry on my behalf, trust me, we're just getting started. But before we go further, drop a comment and tell me, would you have stayed silent at that dinner table? Or would you have said something? I genuinely want to know. Because driving home that night, replaying every word, every laugh, every dismissive wave of Chloe's hand, I told myself it was just another dinner, just another round of being the family disappointment. But 48 hours later, I would discover that Chloe's questions weren't just condescending small talk. They were the opening moves of a theft. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't. The silence of my apartment would have swallowed me whole. Instead, I drove to the small, unassuming office building where I rented a couple of rooms. The official headquarters of Aurelia Analytics. My company. The one my family thought was a hobby. I found Ben exactly where I expected him. Hunched over a keyboard, bathed in the glow of 3 monitors, a half-eaten pizza box beside him. Ben had been my best friend since college. My co-founder. The only person on this planet who saw me not as Alex's weird little brother, but as an equal. A partner. He looked up when I walked in, and his eyes immediately clocked the expression on my face. Whoa, he said, leaning back. Let me guess. Sunday dinner. I slumped into the other chair and gave him the highlights. Chloe's condescension, my family's gleeful participation, my father's command to stop making them look bad. Ben listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening with every word. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he spun his chair around, typed a few commands, and pulled up a file. You know, he said, his voice low, while you were getting roasted over pot roast, I was on a call with the acquisitions team from Sterling Westwood. Sterling Westwood, the massive tech conglomerate that was in the final stages of acquiring us. The deal was so confidential that not even my own family knew the name of my company, let alone the fact that it was about to make Ben and me very, very wealthy. And? I asked. Ben swiveled to face me, a fierce grin breaking across his face. Their CEO, a guy named Harrison. He called you, not the company. You specifically. The single most valuable asset in the entire deal. He said your brain is the reason they're paying 8 figures. He wants you to lead their new AI division after the merger. 8 figures. Opening an entire division. And 3 hours ago, my father told me I sit in a dark room and type. They don't know, man, Ben said, his voice softening. Your family. They have no idea who you are. They don't want to know, I said. They've got the version of me they're comfortable with. The failure. It makes Alex look better. Ben nodded slowly. So what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A new email. The subject line was decorated with digital confetti. You're invited. Alex and Chloe's engagement party. I stared at it. This lavish, formal invitation to celebrate the woman who had just spent an evening trying to break me. But it was the second email that changed everything. It came from an anonymous encrypted address, the kind that immediately sets off alarm bells. The subject line was just 3 letters. VCF. VCF. Venture Capital Fund. Close world. I opened it. The message was short, almost cryptic. Be careful. VCF isn't buying. They're stealing. They're trying to reverse engineer the algorithm of their AI acquisition target. The director leading it thinks the founder is some small-time chump they can roll over. Don't be that chump. My blood went cold. There were dozens of AI startups VCF could have been targeting. Could have been a wrong number, a coincidence. But my mind flashed back to that dinner table. Close questions. The programming language, the data framework, the neural network architecture. Those weren't casual jabs. They were reconnaissance. She hadn't been making fun of me. She'd been sizing up the target. Ben, I said, and something in my voice made him stop mid-chew. Pull up our server access logs. Now. We dove in. Aurelia's core algorithm was protected by heavy security. But we had a sandbox demo version we shared with potential investors under strict NDAs. Sterling Westwood's activity on it was clean, professional, by the book. Then we found VCF's credentials. Their initial access had been normal. Standard queries, basic testing. But over the last week, the activity had turned aggressive. They were hammering our firewalls, running repeated attempts to access the source code directory. All blocked. But the pattern was unmistakable. They weren't evaluating our product. They were trying to pick the lock. It was damning, but it was circumstantial. I needed more. That's when a darker thought hit me. How did Chloe even know enough about my product to target me? I was obsessively private about my work. Only a handful of people knew what I was really building. Ben, a few contractors, and my stomach dropped. My family. Over the years, in those foolish moments of optimism, I'd shared bits and pieces with them, hoping for a glimmer of interest, a shred of pride. I remembered a family barbecue a few months back. I was talking to my cousin David, the good cousin, the one who always seemed to take an interest. I told him about a major breakthrough with the AI's predictive modeling. Alex had wandered over with a beer and overheard. "Still tinkering with that robot brain of yours, Jay?" he'd joked. David had defended me. "No, man, this is really cool stuff. Jason's building something big." At the time, I'd been grateful. Now, a sickening suspicion started forming. I cross-referenced the IP addresses from the sloppier early intrusion attempts on our server. Most were masked behind VPNs, but a few weren't. They traced back to a residential address. I ran a lookup. The address was registered to David, my cousin. The only person in my family who I thought was actually in my corner. I called him. No small talk. No warm-up. "Why, David?" Long pause. "Jason, what are you talking about?" "The IP address, David. The one that's been probing my company's servers for the past week. It's yours." The silence that followed was thick with guilt. I could hear him breathing. I don't know what you... "Cut it, David. Did you tell them? Did you tell Alex and Chloe about my project?" He broke. His voice turned into this pathetic whisper. "I just mentioned it to Alex. I thought it was cool, what you were building. I was bragging about you, man." Bragging. I laughed, and it sounded ugly even to me. "You gave them just enough to find me, to target me. I didn't know she was going to..." "How much did they pay you, David?" Dead silence. "How much?" 5,000. His voice cracked. It was. Chloe called it a consulting fee. I didn't think. $5,000. That's what my cousin's loyalty was worth. $5,000 to sell out years of trust and hand my life's work to a predator. "Please, Jason," he begged. "Don't tell your parents. Don't tell Alex. It was a mistake." "Don't worry, David," I said. And the coldness in my own voice surprised me. "I'm not going to tell anyone." "Oh, thank God. I'm going to show them." I hung up before he could respond. The confirmation shattered something inside me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was coordinated. Chloe had deliberately targeted my company. David had sold me out for pocket change. Alex had unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, been the pipeline. And my parents had spent 32 years making sure everyone saw me as harmless enough to rob. I turned to Ben. "They're trying to steal everything." Ben's face was grim. "So we fight back?" "No," I said, and a strange cold clarity settled over me. "We don't fight back. We let them think they're winning. We build a trap. A beautiful, elegant, inescapable trap. And the engagement party, that's where we spring it." Over the next 72 hours, Ben and I turned our office into a war room. We built what we called the honeypot, a fake vulnerability on our demo server designed to look like a backdoor into the source code. Irresistible bait for a thief who thought she was smarter than everyone in the room. The moment anyone accessed it, our system would silently record everything. Keystrokes, screen activity, and the master stroke. It would activate the microphone on the user's machine. We baited the hook with a fake system update email to all demo users, mentioning a temporary relaxation of security protocols. Just enough to make a hungry thief pounce. Chloe bit within 12 hours. The honeypot captured everything. Her screen, her voice, her directing a small team to crack our firewall and extract the algorithm. And then, the recording that changed everything. Chloe was on the phone with a colleague. Her voice was sharp, confident, dripping with contempt. "We just need the source code and we can build our own clone. By the time the little accounting nerd who built this figures it out, we'll already have our own version on the market." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she said next, laughing. "Honestly, dating the brother was the easiest way in. His family practically handed me everything on a silver platter. They're so desperate to impress me. They don't even realize I'm using them." I played that line back 4 times. Each time, it hit differently. She hadn't just been stealing my work. She'd been using my entire family as pawns. Alex wasn't her fiancé. He was her access point. Their love story was a cover operation. And my family, the people who chose her over me at every turn, they were marks. Just like me. Now I had the proof. I had the motive. And in 10 days, I had the perfect stage. Because sitting in my inbox was that glittering invitation to Alex and Chloe's engagement party. They thought they were inviting a guest. They had no idea they were inviting an auditor. The night before the party, I almost called the whole thing off. It was 2 in the morning. Ben had gone home. The office was dark except for the blue glow of my monitors, and I was sitting there staring at the evidence folder. Every recording, every log, every timestamp of Chloe's crimes, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear. From grief. I'd pulled up an old photo album on my phone. Maybe I was looking for a reason to stop, and I found one. This picture from a beach trip when I was 6 or 7. Alex was giving me a piggyback ride through the shallow waves. We were both laughing so hard, our faces were scrunched up. 2 brothers. No golden child, no disappointment. Just 2 kids in the ocean who hadn't learned yet that the world would turn them into strangers. I stared at that photo for a long time. What if I just walked away, let this Sterling Westwood deal go through quietly, started over, without any of them? Would that be so bad? But then I opened the audio file. Chloe's voice filled my dark office. "By the time the little accounting nerd figures it out, we'll already have our own version." And I remembered, if I didn't act, she would steal 5 years of my life. Clone my algorithm. Launch it under her fund's name. Leave me with nothing. This wasn't just personal. It was survival. He closed the photo album. I looked at the evidence folder, and I said out loud to no one in that empty office, "I wish I had a family worth protecting. But I don't. So I'm going to protect the only thing I built with my own hands." If this story is hitting home for you, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next at that engagement party, I promise you, you are not ready. I arrived fashionably late. Navy blue suit. Well-tailored. Nothing flashy. I wanted to look like I belonged. Like I'd always belonged, and they just never bothered to notice. The ballroom was packed. 100 people in their finest. A giant screen behind the stage, running a slideshow of Alex and Chloe's greatest hits. Perfect smiles, exotic vacations, a love story curated for an audience. Alex and Chloe found me within minutes. He swaggered over, champagne in hand, clapping my shoulder hard enough to sting. "There he is. Glad you could make it, little brother." Chloe smiled, that same venomously sweet smile. "We were just talking about you, Jason. I was telling Alex how cute your dedication to your little hobby is." I smiled back, calm. "Easy. Thanks, Chloe. Actually, my little project is about to have a very big week." Something flickered behind her eyes. Then the mask snapped back. That's when I saw him, Mr. Harrison, CEO of Sterling Westwood, the man who'd called me his most valuable asset, cutting through the crowd toward us. My father rushed over with his best sycophant grin. "Harrison, you know my son Alex, and this is his brilliant fiancée, Chloe." Harrison shook their hands. Then his eyes landed on me. "And this is our other son, Jason," my father added, almost an afterthought. Harrison extended his hand, grip warm and firm. "Jason, a pleasure to finally meet you in person. We're incredibly excited about the work you've been doing." Confused silence. My father blinked. "You two know each other?" "In a manner of speaking," Harrison said. "Jason is something of a legend in our R&D circles." Chloe jumped in fast. "Oh, Jason is full of surprises. I hope one day your little company gets noticed by a big firm." I held her gaze. "You know what, Chloe? I think you're going to be very interested in what happens next." On stage, the MC tapped the microphone. "Time for toasts." Alex gave his speech, the usual self-congratulatory highlight reel, then called me up with a smug grin. His favorite power move. "Come on up, little brother." I walked to that microphone with the remote cool and solid in my hand. 100 faces looked up at me, expecting the awkward little brother to mumble something forgettable. "Thank you, Alex," I began, my voice steady. "I don't have a long speech. I've always believed actions speak louder than words. And lately, Chloe in particular has shown a remarkable interest in the world of forensic accounting AI. I looked at her, front row, smile straining. She's been so curious about my little project. So instead of a toast, I thought I'd share a bit of it with everyone. My thumb found the button, and on that half second before I pressed it, time slowed down. I looked out at the room and I saw my mother in the front row. And for one terrible lurching moment, I remembered her tucking me in at night when I was 5, smoothing my hair, saying, "Sleep tight, baby." My hand trembled. Then I looked at Chloe. She was leaning over to Alex, whispering something, and they both laughed. That same laugh, the one I'd been hearing my entire life. I pressed the button. The romantic slideshow vanished. In its place, a screen recording. Timestamp. Chloe's VCF credentials visible in the corner. The mouse moving frantically, trying to breach directory after directory. A gasp rippled through the room. Then the audio. Chloe's voice, sharp and unmistakable, through the ballroom speakers. "We just need the source code, and we can build our own clone. By the time the little accounting nerd who built this figures it out, we'll already have our own version." Dead silent. But I wasn't done. The recording continued. "Honestly, dating the brother was the easiest way in. His family handed me everything on a silver platter." Alex's face collapsed. Not anger. Something worse. The slow realization that the woman he loved had never loved him back. He was a doorway she walked through. Chloe lurched toward the stage. "He's lying," she screamed. "This is fake," a voice cut through. Calm. Authoritative. Final. "Miss Chloe." Harrison had risen from his seat. "I would advise you to stop talking immediately." I leaned back into the microphone. "The company she was trying to steal from, Aurelia Analytics, is mine. And as of this morning, Sterling Westwood has finalized the acquisition. I'll be heading up their new AI innovation division as vice president." I let it land. "So, in a way, Chloe, you were right. Your fund is very interested in my work, because as of tomorrow, I'm your boss's boss." Chloe swayed on her feet. Alex shook her hand off his arm. My parents looked like they'd seen a ghost. Harrison gave me a single decisive nod. The verdict was in. Chloe turned and fled. Alex didn't follow. He just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the very first time. I made it almost to my car. The parking garage, fluorescent lights buzzing, long shadows on concrete. My parents and Alex caught up. A broken little delegation. You can't just walk away, my mother shouted. You humiliated your brother. You destroyed his future. I turned to face them. My future was the one on the line. Chloe was stealing my work. Did you hear that part? Or were you too focused on the embarrassment? My father stepped forward. She was ambitious. Maybe she went too far. But you had no class. You aired our dirty laundry in public. It stopped being our laundry the moment you chose her over me. Alex's voice came out ragged. You could have just told me, Jason, privately. Told you? I said. The man who laughed the loudest when his fiancée called my life's work adorable? You wouldn't have listened. You never listen. You just wait for your turn to talk. In the silence that followed, my mother's composure finally cracked. Not into tears of remorse, into fury. We invested everything in Alex, she spat. Your father and I, our savings, our retirement. He was supposed to take care of us, and now you've ruined him. And there it was, the final ugly truth, out in the open at last. It was never about love. It was never about which son they were prouder of. It was a financial calculation. Alex was their high-yield stock. I was the forgotten savings bond in a dusty drawer. Their entire family structure, every compliment to him, every dismissal of me, was just portfolio management. And their price investment had just crashed. I see, I said softly. That explains a lot. I looked at Alex one more time, and what I saw wasn't my enemy. It was my brother, the kid who gave me piggyback rides through the waves before the world taught us to be strangers. He was a victim too. Just one who'd never know it. I hope you find someone who actually loves you, Alex, I said. You deserve that much. Then I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, 3 figures stood under the harsh fluorescent lights, getting smaller and smaller until they disappeared. 6 months later, the murder went through. Vice President of AI Innovation. A brilliant team. A boss in Harrison who treated me like a partner, not a prop. Chloe was terminated, facing lawsuits. Alex lost clients, lost his image, lost the only currency he'd ever traded in. My mother called once, asking for money, asking me to bail out the golden child they'd bet their retirement on. I gave her the number of a financial advisor who specialized in debt management. She hasn't called since. I thought I'd feel like I won. I don't. Freedom doesn't feel like victory. It feels like waking up in an empty house and realizing the noise is finally gone. Some nights, the silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. But it's my silence now. My house. My life. And for the first time, that feels like enough. Have you ever had to walk away from the people who are supposed to love you the most? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. I need to ask you 2 things, and I want you to be honest. First, have you ever been the scapegoat in your family? The one who could never do enough, never be enough, while someone else got all the praise for just showing up? And second, if you were me, standing on that stage with that remote in your hand and your mother in the front row, would you have pressed the button? Or would you have walked away and let them keep their lie? Because 6 months later, I'm still not 100% sure I made the right call. Tell me your story. Tell me what you would have done. I read every single comment, and I promise you, you're not alone in this.